So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That's right, it is time for Coffee Talk, where we will be taking a jab at what is going on in the world today, taking a look at and reading through some various news articles from around the world, mostly in the United States, but from around the world primarily. Taking a look at the hypocrisy in the news and poking fun of it, being really sarcastic and nasty about it, because that's how I roll. No, really, it's embarrassing, the news, and it's a shame. Life could be so much easier, but they just don't want it to be, do they? Anyways, again, this is Coffee Talk, and you can find me on YouTube for the live portion at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels, or X, aka Twitter, at Coffee Talk Chat, if you would care to join me there. Sometimes I could put memes up there that I can't put anywhere else because ScrewTube doesn't like it. And of course, there's always Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. And naturally, I do try to read through as many of the comments as I can realistically, so that those of you who are listening and not able to see can keep up with the conversation and follow along with me. Follow the bouncing ball as we go ahead and acknowledge some of the people that have chosen to chime in on the live portion thus far. I see Helter is here today. Donna Beaver is here today, reminding everyone, thumbs up, like, and share. Please do if you don't mind. I'll take all the help I can get. Dragon is here. Urban Angst. Semper Fi. Monkey is here. Sven is here. Doc Galt is here. Helter says people are sheep. They think the Super Bowl is the end-all, be-all phenomenon of all time. Well, do they really think that, or are they just told that they are? There's an old electronica song. Who remembers electronica or electronica track? And over that track, I can't remember who did it. There's a DJ, and in the middle of the track, he says something akin to, paraphrasing a little bit here, that the industry tells people what music to listen to and what music they like, and God help us, they like it and they listen to it. Absolutely. And Urban says, did Taylor Swift finally get her touchdown? Who knows? Who knows? Sven, she's a man. Yeah, that's from Austin Powers, Gold Member, right? The third one. I think that's where that phrasing is from. And that ties in with something I was going to talk about here. I was actually going to save it for a little bit later, but I'll go ahead and I'll play it now. See, the thing with Taylor Swift, like most of these celebrities, is that she's popular because they tell us that she is. They tell us that she is. And this is one I was saving for a little bit later, but I'll go ahead and run it over now. And this is from ITM. It says, Rocky sucks. Dwayne Johnson booed by former fans. And this happened. And this is not last night because the article's a couple days old. During last night's episode of WWE Monday Night Raw, Dwayne Johnson was booed by the fan base that once considered him one of the greatest entertainers of all time. There's no doubt Dwayne Johnson has made his mark on entertainment after making his feature debut in The Mummy Returns, The Scorpion King. Johnson has gone on to star in some of the most successful movies. Not really. He's done a lot of really shitty films, quite frankly. Most of the films that he's done have not been that good. I'm looking for the film clip itself. I'm looking for the film clip itself here where they are booing him because he was relentlessly booed on when he came out and revealed. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Yes. I know this. It's really bad timing. Hold on, please. Sorry, folks. Domestic issue. I'm trying to pull up the clip of him being booed. I believe this is it, and I'll show it to you here. I'll show it to you here so you can get an idea of it. And this is him coming back on WWE and announcing that he is returning to the WWE. But here's his fanfare. Is that up? Here we go. Take a look at this. And what they're chanting there is "You suck. You suck." That's the chant. Can't get a word in edgewise. And believe it or not, his reveal on WWE's main page has the largest. It now breaks the record for the most thumbs down of any video. And so the question becomes, well, who actually likes Dwayne Johnson then? Nobody, apparently. And I've joked about him being the Manchurian candidate before because they always blow him up in the media about how fantastic he is. But this is what people really think. It's the same thing with Taylor Swift. Do people really like Taylor Swift? Or are we just told that we do? And then if anybody has anything negative to say, the media attacks it and acts like they're blowing things out of proportion. This is more reality right here. Dwayne Johnson just being at several attempts there to get on the mic and speak. They don't care. People don't want to see him anymore. They don't care anymore. It's embarrassing. But again, that's what the media does. They tell you who you like. They tell you who you don't like. God forbid anybody takes a stand and says, you know what? No, nobody likes this person. They'll attack you relentlessly. Let me catch up a couple of comments here really quickly. Doc Galt says Frank Zappa did the same thing in the song Tinseltown Rebellion. You know, what's funny about Frank Zappa bringing him up is he did the song Valley Girls. The song Valley Girls was meant to insult the California lifestyle, but it was a hit song. And he refused to ever sing it again because he was pissed off that people didn't get the point. Urban says Dwayne Johnson is way too cozy with Oprah Winfrey. Whatever those two were up to in Maui during the natural wildfire, it was so sinister, and they're both in on it. Rodney says Dwayne Johnson finally getting a tiny dose of what he deserves. And I see we're being joined by Carrick and by All People. And Helter says this is very much akin to cult-like mentality. These fans value conformity. Anyone who thinks differently gets hammered down hard. Yes, indeed. And there's a lot of people that, guess what? They don't like Taylor Swift. They really don't. But the media, ask the media, they love her. Beyonce is the same way. Do people really like Beyonce? Do you really want to hear people whining about how Beyonce hasn't won Album of the Year? She's got, 24 Grammys? Is that correct? What more do you need, woman? Seriously, get your husband to buy you Album of the Year. That's about how it works these days, isn't it? Seriously. All People says Frank Zappa was exposed by Dave McGowan as a government agent in the book Weird Science. Really? And Doc Galt says Dwayne Johnson did a podcast with Joe Rogan saying that he was approached by a certain political party to run for POTUS under a certain circumstance. It wouldn't surprise me. I've often made fun of him saying that he's the Manchurian candidate and that's why they blow him up in the media like that. They make him seem like Sunshine Boy, like everybody in the world just loves him and he's so fantastic and he's so charitable. And they showcase, like I made fun of it months ago when he went to Hawaii to the 7-Eleven where he used to steal a Snicker bar every day on his way to the gym to work out because he was so poor. Dude, you've been Vince McMahon's little golden boy since the day you were born. Okay, that kid, I doubt seriously he ever wanted for anything, really. And then he bought a box of Snickers and told the guy to give them away. Yeah, that's making up for your theft, Dwayne. I I don't believe any of that. That's all staged. And he brought a camera crew with him. So that tells you everything you need to know. Sven says Taylor supports gross anti-black and anti-women policies. She also hammers people for their carbon footprint and then flies all over the world in one of her multiple private jets, apparently. And All People says Taylor's parents were filthy rich bankers who funded her career. Beyonce, Haitian lineage mom, and Bahamian dad family, and her husband's family are dark occultists. Well, the way she acts, I could see that. I could see that. But on to the actual news. Now that we've hammered that down, Reuters, Israel frees 2 hostages. Gaza official says 67 killed in assault. Actually, it's over 100 from what I understand. So yeah, this is what happens when you ignore the UN and you ignore the United States and you ignore the European Union and just do what you need to do. Because negotiations obviously weren't working. So here we go. Israel freed 2 Israeli Argentinian hostages held by Hamas in Rafah on Monday in a ferocious rescue operation, killing 67 Palestinians in the southern Gaza city, where about 1 million civilians have sought refuge from months of bombardments. The mission by the Israeli military, the Shin Bet Security Service, and a special police unit freed Fernando Simon Marman, 60, and Luis Hare, 70, the military said. They were among 250 people seized during the October 7th raid by Hamas militants that triggered Israeli war in Gaza. More than 4 months on, much of the densely populated strip of land in the Mediterranean is in ruins, with 28,340 Palestinians dead and 67,984 wounded. Where do they get such a precise number from? I don't trust that. According to Gaza health officials, with many others believed to be buried under the rubble. Could be. The Israeli military says 31 hostages have died in that time, but Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Monday rescue showed that military pressure should continue as he brushed aside international alarm at its plans for a ground assault on Rafah. The fact that they even told them that they were going to try to go to Rafah in the first place was a strategic error. But sorry, folks, that's what war looks like. I know that we all want to see this like really highly polished, politically correct, pussified version of war, but that's not how it works. That's not what the enemy's going to do, then that's not what you should do. And there's going to be a lot of collateral damage, both to property and to people. That's what war is. I know that doesn't sound very politically correct, and that people don't want to hear that, but that's how it works. And it can't only be one-sided. If your enemy's going to be ruthless, you can't pussyfoot your way around it. You have to be ruthless as well, or just leave. Just leave. That's why the U.S. hasn't won a war since World War II. They're so worried about what the press is going to say and how they're going to look on the global scene that they never followed through with anything. And everywhere they go and hammer things out, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, they walk away and leave a mess, and things are worse after the fact because they never finish anything. They never finish anything. And All People agrees that The Rock staged the entire thing. Yeah, sure he did. Sure he did. And 67, oh my God. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure I heard it's more like 100, but whatever. Urban says what the headline doesn't say is that most of the 67 dead were terrorists holding the hostages and running the building. Those were the Palestinians that the article mentions. Correct. I believe that. Urban says, according to Gaza health officials, very reliable. Yeah, that's what caught my eye in the phrasing as well. That they're going to lie. If it's going to make them look better, they're going to lie about it. That's a guarantee. That's a guarantee. And Legends is here. Glad you could make it here today. Legends, Monday the 12th. Monday the 12th. But that's what's going on. I mean, this is big news. Everybody has been seeing this. Yeah, they're leveling buildings. They didn't want the world and the UN and everybody did not want them going in here and doing any kind of a military operation. They didn't want them They didn't want them going into this territory because that's where everybody's hiding. And I guess they're worried about innocent civilians getting caught up. But the reason that they're in here is because they can't go anywhere else. That's Rafah. They're in Rafah because the rest of the Middle East won't take them. They won't take them because they're refugees from all over the Middle East, and those countries don't want them back. They don't want them back. Dragon says the journalists don't seem too happy about the hostage rescue. No, they don't. They don't, because they want it to be politically correct. They want this really polished, shiny chessboard version of war, and it's never been that. Sven says no one anywhere should trust the U.S. with anything. And H12 is here. Glad you can make it, H12. Thanks for joining us here today as we tool around, and we're going to jump from the Middle East to El Salvador. Is it El Salvador or Ecuador? I think it's Ecuador this article is going to be about. One more comment here from Urban. He says, meanwhile, not too much about the headquarters of the UNRWA being a staging area for the main Hamas administrative and operational center. That's right. That was brought up a couple weeks ago, right? That the hostages even were being held in like a huge UN staging area. Nobody wants to run that over, do they? But here we go. The Wall Street Journal. Remember when the Wall Street Journal used to talk about finance all the time? Ecuador follows El Salvador in arresting gangs and retaking prisons. El Salvador President Nayib Bukele's uncompromising approach to root out criminal gangs is beginning to be adopted elsewhere in Latin America with striking results. Homicides in Ecuador tumbled 70% in a month after President Daniel Noboa sent in the military to arrest suspected gang members and retake control of the prisons, where their leaders orchestrated cocaine shipments and planned a wave of killings that had plunged the country into chaos. Other countries have said they are looking at doing much the same. Oh, who would have thought? Arrest criminals and get them off the streets, and maybe your crime rate will go down. What a novel idea. Ecuador's new approach, enacted after gangsters stunned the nation by storming a public television station on January 9th, uses many of the methods introduced by El Salvador's Buckle to lower homicides by 92% since 2015, when the country was the world's murder capital. We're delivering results. Things are improving. The violence is declining, Noboa said in a recent television interview, but we don't know when this war is going to end. No one knows. Bukele has in 4 years transformed his tiny Central American nation from one of the most violent in Latin America to one of the safest. A booming cocaine trade helped make Ecuador one of the world's deadliest nations, with homicides shooting up from fewer than 1,000 in 2018 to over 8,000 in 2023. Well, that's what has to be done. When you reach a point where some private business, albeit in this case we're talking about drug dealers, has more money and manpower than the government, eventually they will become the government if you don't push back, and that's what needed to happen here. Theodore Roosevelt went through that. Was it with Rockefeller, I want to say, where he didn't like the idea that a business mogul had more money available to it than the U.S. government. He wanted to chat with the guy, and he said, have your man contact our man. I get this from a documentary I watched on Theodore Roosevelt years ago. And he basically meant have the Secretary of State contact my private secretary. I don't want to bother to talk to you. And Theodore Roosevelt didn't like that. He was like, I'm the president of the damn United States. You come here and you talk to me. He didn't like that. And that was a private enterprise business, not drug dealers running around shooting people, but it's the same concept. if you are a government, you can't have a private entity be bigger than you are. Or eventually they will be the government. They'll run it some way, or they'll just take it over. And that's what a lot of these Latin American countries are facing. So yeah, they either push back or push over is what it's going to boil down to. Are you going to be on the take? Are you going to sell out, or are you going to fight back? At least try to fight back. All People says every war the U.S. has been in seems to require the U.S. rebuilding that prior primitive nation at taxpayers' expense in a modern land that goes primitive in weeks. He says the film The Mouse That Roared as a reference. Yeah, well, you know, they do that because it worked with Japan. Japan turned out fine after the axes of evil were defeated after World War II was over. That worked in Japan when they surrendered unconditionally. They surrendered unconditionally after Nagasaki, but it's not working with any of these other countries, established countries since then. Doc says, look at Somalia in the 90s, drug lords turned into warlords. Yeah, exactly. And Sven says the cartels have more money than Mexico now. Drugs, nope. Human trafficking. Perhaps. I'm not sure. Hell, why should anybody buy any narcotics anymore when you can get a prescription? You can get a prescription filled and they'll take care of you. They'll take care of you. That's how it works. But yeah, these Latin American countries, South American countries, they need to fight back now while they can before they don't have a country. Absolutely. Should the U.S. help? I don't think so. We throw too much of our money around as it is, and we're already investing in that. We're already down there showing a military presence to try to prevent things from jumping off too far and sticking our nose in too many people's businesses, too many countries, putting our finger in too many pies. Or the government is. The American people, for the most part, don't want it. If we're going to get cooperation, you're going to stop caravanning migrants through your country to our back door. Maybe we'll figure something out. That would be my attitude if I was in government. Otherwise, screw you and sort it out yourself. Sort it out yourself. And Rodney says the U.S. shares the same fate. BlackRock, Vanguard basically tell the U.S. government what to do. Yeah. And All People says exactly. The U.S. gave Japan 20 to 60 billion after World War II, which created their auto and computer industry that came back to destroy the American economy in the 80s. Oh, no. As we jump, we're going to jump from Latin America to Denver. Because, you know, in Denver, the mayor of Denver, Colorado is going to tell you why they're having trouble with so many illegal aliens. And this is a Western Journal article. Denver mayor blames Republicans as he cuts city services to free up money for illegal aliens. Denver, Colorado Mayor Mike Johnson announced Friday that the city would be making cuts to services because of what KCNC, that's a local television station there, called a critical situation with the budget. Being a politician, Johnson refused to take responsibility for the cuts himself, of course. And being a leftist, oh, this is a very one-sided article, isn't it? One outlet in 2017 referred to him as a homegrown Bernie Sanders. He certainly couldn't blame the influx of illegal immigrants in his city, even though that appears to be what's given rise to the critical situation. And being a Democrat, Johnson wasn't willing to lay the blame for the problem where it belongs, at least in 2024, at the feet of President Joe Biden and his administration's failed border policies. Instead, Johnson opened his news conference on Friday by blaming the cuts on congressional Republicans. Oh, is that why they're here? I'm here to talk a little bit about the devastating impact of the failure of Republican leadership in Congress this week to pass comprehensive immigration change and the impact that will have both that will have on both our city budgets and on the services we can provide for newcomers in the city, Johnson said right out of the gate. Newcomers. I see. So we're not even calling them migrants now. We're calling them newcomers now. Newcomers. Okay. Oh my God. He must have been watching Alien Nation. Granted, Johnson eventually got around to expressing some frustration over the fact that the Democrat controlled Senate also failed to pass a border deal this week, but that was later. Quote, we would have a balanced flow of people that would come with work authorization, Johnson said, if only Congress had passed a bill that would come with federal resources and cities like ours could successfully integrate them. You're overloaded with them. And they're giving them work permits. They're giving them work permits. I mean, what do you want? And it's congressional Republicans. It's their fault. Talked about it many times. $118 billion foreign aid. Oh, no, excuse me. Border reform and foreign aid package, of which roughly 1% of that is actually going to anything on the border, and the rest of it's going overseas. 68 billion going to the Ukraine. What, 15 or 18 billion going to Israel, and God knows where the rest of it's going. Less than 2 billion is going to the border. Is that correct? I think that's what the number was. So that's where I get 1% from. But it's a border and foreign aid package. And that's the reason why. That's the reason why Mike Johnson is apparently being forced to cut his budget to accommodate illegal aliens. Make sense to anyone? Does it make sense to anybody? Monkey says if you want a rabbit hole, you should check out the mayor of Dalton in the Chicago suburbs of Illinois. She's literally a mini dictator that's shutting out the government workers in her office. Yeah, we actually talked about her on Friday. She's come up a couple of times. The woman is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. And they started off in the black, and now they're in the red. They had a surplus of $7 million. It's not a big community. Now they're broke. And she refuses to be held accountable for the spending. All people wants to know if I saw the event that occurred this past weekend at Joel Osteen's church. Was the event coordinator really a transistor radio illegal alien, as some are now saying? I heard about that. I didn't read too much about the story. But yeah, there was a shooting there at the church. And she was killed because there are armed guards there, as I understand it. She was killed, and the boy that she was with was wounded. Monkey says, check out Nate the lawyer on the mayor of Dalton story. She's literally showing her corruption out in the open, billing a big rookie mistake for being a crooked politician. Well, I figured she probably figures, why hide it? Why hide it? Everyone else gets away with it, but she's not that big. She's not big enough to be safe. Helter says Denver and other major cities are draining their resources completely dry because they brought the issue on their own accord. If Johnson wants to share the cost, he should give up his salary. Oh no, that won't happen. He doesn't want to spend his money. He wants to spend yours. And Paul Burke and Zane have joined us here today. Dragon says if he was Greg Abbott, he would send every one of the illegal immigrants out to all the Democrat sanctuary cities. It's ridiculous because Biden could close the border anytime he wants. Yeah, he has the authority. He keeps saying, he keeps hammering the idea that you have to pass this bill to give him the power that he needs. He's had the authority the entire time. He's the one that opened the border in the first place. He's the one that opened it in the first place. So yeah, big surprise. And Nature Nerd says the church is a cult. That's why the woman was crazy. Well, I mean, I hesitate to even call it a church. Joel Osteen is a motivational speaker that leans on religion. But there's nothing biblical about what goes on there, in my opinion. Nothing. He's as bad as any of them. TD Jakes or pick your poison. Joyce Myers. They're all the same. They are all the same. And we have more corruption in politics. Can you imagine? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? This is an article from State of the Union exposing more ballot stuffing. And I love how they cherry pick these. So, State of the Union, authorities charge prominent Democrat in elaborate mail-in ballot scheme. And there you have a woman you're looking over her shoulder at some mail-in ballots. And the article goes on to read, prominent Atlantic City Democratic, hold still, operative Craig Calloway has been charged with orchestrating a mail-in ballot scheme to sway elections. The U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey has accused him of fraudulently procuring and casting ballots, undermining the electoral process. Calloway and his associates allegedly paid individuals to serve as authorized messengers for voters intending to vote by mail, but then collected and submitted the ballots themselves. Holding free and fair elections is a bedrock principle of our democracy. I thought we were in a constitutional republic. You do Pledge of Allegiance to the republic, and how does it? Well, I pledge of allegiance to the flag in the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. I'm pretty sure the word democracy is not in there. As alleged in the complaint, the defendant attempted to deprive New Jersey, I'm sure it goes on in New York too, but you get the idea. New Jersey residents of a fair election by fraudulently procuring and casting ballots. Today's charges reflect our office's commitment to hold to account those who try to undermine the electoral process, U.S. Attorney Philip R. Selinger said. Many of the ballots were cast under the names of individuals who did not participate in the election. Are they in the graveyard? Are they in the mental hospital? Where are they? Voter fraud at any level chips away at the faith that people have in our system. I don't have any faith in it. FBI Newark Special Agent in Charge James E. Dennehy said, "We're unable as American citizens to hold our government accountable if our votes are compromised. The FBI and our law enforcement partners understand the gravity of protecting the process and will bring those criminals who break the law to justice." Under New Jersey law, a messenger is required to deliver any mail-in ballots they received directly to the voter who requested the ballots and certify that they would do so. However, after receiving mail-in ballots, they purported messengers left the county clerk's office and instead handed the ballots to Calloway or his subordinates. Calloway faces a potential penalty of 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. And by the way, this isn't Calloway's first encounter with the law, as he was previously sentenced for bribery and was involved in a sex sting against a political rival. Then why is he counting ballots for anybody in New Jersey? Why is he in there? If he's been in sex scandals with politicians and he's been charged and sentenced for bribery. Prominent Atlantic City Democrat operative Craig Calloway. Why is anybody working with this guy? Someone explain that to me. Someone explain how come this person is still in politics. It's incredible. And again, I point out this is cherry picked. This is cherry picked because this, just like every other story that I've shown in the last few months involving voter fraud, it's small time. It's really a small time operation, but it's how the government shows you that they're doing all they can to make sure your vote is safe. And they're doing it because so many people, or more and more people, are becoming convinced that something really funny went on with the last presidential election, which you're not allowed even to talk about. You can get in trouble for talking about it on social media. 81 million votes, folks. That's all I got to say about that. And Doc says, you know what will happen next? All these sanctuary cities will beg for the Fed for a bailout. Well, they already are. They have been for a couple of months now. Sven says a friend of theirs said he overheard not wearing white underwear was a sin. The dude never really tells stories, but this is one of many 3 stories I've heard him tell. What does it mean? No idea. Is he a Mormon? They have very specific rules about undergarments. Urban says now would be a time to start up a regional bus company under contract to border cities and towns to automatically bus them to the nearest official sanctuary city, or maybe the further the better. Yeah, bus them all the way to Mexico City. Zane says the pledge is just a brainwash. Helter says the surprise is not that a Democrat is caught cheating. The surprise is that the Democrat got caught cheating and is actually being punished for it. He's not big enough to hide. He's not big enough to hide or protect. And they want to show the American people, yeah, your vote's safe. Trust us. It's all good. We wouldn't cheat you. We're fighting for you. We're fighting for you. And All People says child killer, Satanist Michael Hutchinson, Damian Eccles said fake pastor Joel Olstein, and Aleister Crowley were the 2 individuals he admired and respected most. Weird. And Monkey says, weird how people say that we're a democracy is the number 1 incorrect thing to say of what we are, but just everyone accepts it as fact. Well, you're spoon-fed that constantly by politicians and by the media. They're always telling you, oh, we have to uphold our democracy. We have to bring democracy to the third world. We got to go to Afghanistan and give them democracy. They don't want it. Okay? They don't want it. They see how it doesn't work here. Why would they want it? And Dragon says calling it free and fair election is akin to selling asbestos free cereal. And Boogers is here. Glad you could join us. And Paul Burke says he won't do any time. We'll see. We'll see if he does time or not. He might be the designated scapegoat. I'm waiting for Fauci to go to jail, and everybody will blame him like he's the only one. I'm still sitting there waiting on it. And Bernab is here. Bernab Sanchez. Glad you could make it today, as more people are popping in. And All People is surprised that a Democrat is cheating in something. Yeah, well, yeah, it happens. It happens. It happens on both sides of the aisle while we're being so bipartisan. All People says there are 3 dolls behind you. 2 represent you and your wife. 1 is blonde. Who does the blonde doll represent? I'm just wondering. Who's blonde? There's no blonde. Do you mean the teddy bear? That's just an old Care Bear. The white one is a Care Bear. There's the Raggedy Andy is me. And then the black Raggedy Ann, of course, is her. And Zane says Afghanistan needs to be left alone. Just let them kill each other. Let them throw rocks at each other all day. Stay out of it. Who cares? Bernab says, by the way, my sister-in-law is doing a story on the infiltration of people coming in from Panama entering the USA. Okay. Interesting. As we shift around here, and we're going to go to our back door, my back door in Georgia, more on Cop City. And this is interesting, and this is a story from The Guardian. This is interesting because what they do here lends credibility to the protesters of Cop City in the first place. Because this is what they're accusing the Atlanta police of, while they're protesting entirely the wrong way, because they're practically a terrorist organization at this point, throwing firebombs and firing shots at police and wrecking equipment, tractors and backhoes and stuff. The Guardian says Georgia police and FBI conduct SWAT-style raids on Cop City activists' homes. Now, this picture right here, if you're watching, where you see the police motorcycles, that's a parking garage with police motorcycles that were firebombed just recently. They were all destroyed. And of course, that just hurts the taxpayer. But they're all wrecked except for the one parked in the front here. Police in Georgia, together with federal agencies, are conducting crackdowns on activists involved in continuing campaign against a controversial police and fire department training center known as, quote, Cop City, that has included acts of arson and sabotage against equipment being used on the project. This week alone saw Atlanta area raids by law enforcement that took a woman out of her house with no shirt, left a naked photo of another woman on display after ransacking a room and dragging a man by his hair while arresting none of them. The pre-dawn raids on 3 houses on Thursday with a third SWAT-style operation in residential areas of Atlanta and nearby unincorporated DeKalb County tied to a movement that began in 2021 and the first in which the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, that is the ATF, played a prominent role. Yeah, they'll get in on anything. The fight against Cop City has attracted national and global headlines, especially after police shot and killed one environmental protester at a campsite in a public park, the first such incident of its kind in U.S. history. They leave out, and we talked about this last week, there was a firefight that was started by the protesters with police. The police were shot at, they returned fire, this guy got hit. It's not like they just decided to shoot him. At least one of the search warrants for Thursday's raid, seen by The Guardian, authorized the FBI to confiscate dozens of items from the raided homes, including laptops, cell phones, Defend the Atlanta Forest stickers and posters, and personal journals. The operation came after weeks of Atlanta officials promoting a campaign to catch activists linked to arson against construction and police equipment. All the while, activists have been committing more acts of sabotage, alternating with nonviolent civil disobedience. And it goes on to explain about the training center. Training center is being built on a 171-acre footprint in a forest southeast of Atlanta. Correction, it is not a forest. It's a public park mostly. They call it a forest, but it really isn't. Opposition to the project has come from a wide range of local and national supporters, mostly national supporters and international. Again, they've arrested people from France, from Canada, from like Germany, from all over the country. Very few actually from Atlanta or Georgia. And is centered on concerns such as unchecked police militarization and clearing forests in an era of climate crisis. Yeah, they don't care about that. Atlanta police say the center is needed for world-class training. One activist, John Mazarek, was arrested in Thursday's raid and charged with first-degree arson in connection to an incident in July in which 8 police motorcycles were burned. More arrests will come soon, the Atlanta police chief, Darren Shirebaum, told a press conference. So now they're those kind of raids without following up makes the Atlanta police now look suspicious. And Legend says they're at the point of voting third party just so people will leave them alone. Since if I choose not to vote, people tell me it's my civic duty. However, if I vote one way or the other, they complain. Well, you know what? Tell them to mind their damn business. Tell them the law says you don't have to tell them who you're voting for if you're voting at all. It's true. And Puck says with Democrats, the ends justify the means. It seems that way, huh? And Doc Galt says, what is Cop City? As was partially explained in the article there, they're calling it Cop City. It's a park reservation that's called Atlanta Forest something or other. I forget the actual title. So it's not really a forest. They call it a forest. It's just a public park, but it's owned by the city, and there's already correctional facilities there. There's like a juvenile and an adult corrections building and a couple of other buildings, I think. And they said, okay, we already own the land. We already have law enforcement buildings there. We'll put our fire and police training building right there in the same row. And protesters started coming from all over the damn planet and protesting Cop City. Oh, you're militarizing police and all this other stuff. They coined the phrase "Cop City," and the protesting has been very aggressive. They've shot at the police. They've thrown firebombs, rocks, bricks. They've sabotaged construction equipment, so on and so forth. And it's been going on for years. It's been ridiculous. Nature Nerd says if Trump wins the democracy vote, the Democrats will try to make the delegates vote for them somehow. And then Doc says, okay, you answered that. It's a training facility. Well, I know. I'm catching up the comments here. Monkey says, watch those protesters protest at the ATF FBI facility and see how long they'll last. Yeah, it's easy when you're out in the woods and you don't think you're going to get caught trying to run away. And Zane says North Korea was recently caught selling the tools to make AKs to Sudan and Uganda. And Semperfi says the usual suspects, they rarely reside in the area they are peacefully protesting. Pretty much. And David Jones is here. He says, crazy 2024 going strong. Yeah, it's always been crazy. It's just more obvious now because, we have the World Wide Web. We have social media. Everything circulates so quickly now. Something happens halfway across the world and everybody knows in 10 minutes. So, yeah, we can really get a showcase of the crazy now. And Zane says the whole election cycle will be a complete and utter shit show. I agree. But that's what's going on with Cop City. Unbelievable. But, speaking of the presidency, don't worry. Everything is going to be all right. You know why? Because Kamala Harris has got your back. As told by Forbes. Forbes has the article, quote, I am ready to serve. She's ready. Kamala Harris responds to concerns over Biden's age. There she is. Hey, Kamala, how you doing, sweetheart? Vice President Kamala Harris said, I am ready to step into the presidency during an interview with the Wall Street Journal published on Monday, as concerns about President Joe Biden's age continue to grow, though her own poll numbers are even lower than the president's, which I don't trust poll numbers. I've attacked poll numbers many, many times on this channel because they're crap. You can't really trust poll numbers. But I do know that people don't like her and they don't like Biden, despite what the media tells us. So here we go. Harris was asked by the Journal if voters' concerns about Biden's age mean she must convince them that she is ready to serve. And Harris said she is ready to serve. There's, quote, there's no question about that. Yeah, she's ready to just step into those shoes. She hasn't done her job yet, but she's ready. She's ready to fill those shoes, okay? The Journal reported, oh, excuse me, I skipped a paragraph. Harris was interviewed by the Journal on Tuesday before the Thursday release of Special Counsel Robert Hur's report on Biden's handling of classified data, which, while not pursuing criminal charges against him, characterized him as appearing to be a, quote, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. That is about the nicest way you could possibly put it. Wow, they sugarcoated that. He wants to keep his job. The Journal reported that after members of Biden's staff asked Harris to appear on a Sunday news show to defend the president after Hur's report, she didn't want to wait. And on Friday, said the president was, quote, on top of it and in front of it all. He's on top of something. He's on top and in front of something. I picture him on the toilet with that phrase. So here we go. 37.5%. That's the percentage of people who approve of Harris as of February 6th. Again, I don't trust poll numbers. According to an average of the latest polls compiled by 538, Harris's numbers come in even lower than Biden's approval rating, which is at 38.9 as of February 12th, according to an average of polls compiled by 538, of course. In the Journal's interview, Harris discussed the more prominent role the White House has given her on abortion rights. In the wake of the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade, she told the Journal that she concentrated on showing people, quote, what has actually been happening since the Dobbs decision came down. She also has taken a more prominent role with Biden in discussing the war between Israel and Hamas. Has she? As they pass in the hallway and they wave, and she says, hey, how's that thing going between Israel and Hamas? And he says, hey, yeah, the thing and over there and stuff. And, they're doing the thing. And you know what I'm talking about. And then she waves again, and then she goes on about her business. That's that's what it is. Semper Fi says, since you're in Georgia, what's the consensus of the situation with Fannie Willis in the community? Nobody likes her. They don't like her. They don't trust her. They think it's a waste of time, quite frankly. Quit wasting time is the consensus. This is something that she's doing for political moves, and it's backfiring big time because Fannie Willis herself is now in a lot of hot water. She's in a lot of hot water. It looks like there could be some fraud. It looks like there could be some nepotism. Her boyfriend, that she was cheating, or he was cheating on his wife while she was with him. And then she hires him to be the special attorney that he's not qualified to do that type of job anyways. And paying him, well, rumor has it, damn near $1 million. And all he's done is had like a couple of interviews. It's ridiculous. But yeah, nobody, they don't even care. It's like, just get it over with. They don't even care. Doc says, after 4 years of sitting around doing nothing, Kamala's here. Yeah, she's ready for you. She's ready to fill those shoes. She's ready to dive right in there. She's just been waiting, standing on the razor's edge. Standing on the razor's edge, balancing, preparing herself for that moment where, if he got too old somehow, seemed like his cognitive decline was out of control, she could dive in there and rescue the United States. She's ready for it. She's ready for it. And Puck says, in a sane world, Fannie would have been removed. That case, there's grounds for dismissal already. It should have been shut down by now. Dragon says, I can't imagine that women would want. I can't imagine that women would want her to represent him as the first female president. Look how many women allegedly voted for Hillary Clinton. Do you trust her? Do you think the average American female identifies with Hillary, Mrs. I don't think I've ever told a lie in my entire life. After that story she told about dodging bullets, getting off the plane overseas. And there was video footage that showed that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, there was a choir of children singing when she got off the plane. Oh my God. They needed that choir of children so that she could dive behind them in case there was shooting. Semper says Joe Biden's memory is so bad that he is asking for an investigation into who this Jill person is that's always following him around. Oh, no. That's terrible. And Urban wants Tiffany Henyard for president. Oh, my gosh. Oh, man. She will absolutely wear out that credit card. She will absolutely wear out that credit card. As we bounce around here. Oh, and I see Anarchy Television has joined us. A little late to the game, Anarchy. That's all right, though. The video should be shared, or saved, rather. It should be saved regardless. How about something from DC News Now? You'll love this. 80% of asylum seekers are rejected, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Really? Are you sure about that? I can't tell. Is that him? Yeah, it says Luis Miranda, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Communications, Office of Public Affairs for the Department of Homeland Security. Golly, that's a title and a half. You need that on 2 business cards. So here we go. About 80% of asylum seekers who come to the United States are being rejected and sent back home, according to Luis Miranda, Assistant Secretary for Communications with the Department of Homeland Security. And there's a particular reason I'm reading this article, and I'll explain it in a minute if you haven't figured it out already. Quote, In general, most of the people who arrived in the United States during the last 3 years have been deported, expelled, or returned to Mexico, Miranda said during a video news conference on Wednesday afternoon. He stated those who could not be immediately sent back face removal proceedings that can take years. Quote, asylum seekers are allowed to remain in the U.S. during the legal process, but cannot obtain work permits, he said. Miranda also stressed that asylum is for those who have been persecuted, belonging to vulnerable populations, or are discriminated against for their sexual orientation or preference and religious or political beliefs. It has been a direct persecution, he said. Asylum doesn't exist for those fleeing or traveling for economic reasons or due to general violence where they live. Asylum is determined by the courts, and it varies depending on the case. Okay, so here we have this representative from the Department of Homeland Security. They title this, telling you 80% of asylum seekers rejected, according to Department of Homeland Security officials, right? This is the guy that's being quoted, Luis Miranda, with the longest freaking title ever. Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Communication, Office of Public Affairs for the Department of Homeland Security. Good Lord. What a freaking title for a resume. So, are 80% of asylum seekers actually being rejected? If they are seeking asylum from, did you pay attention? Mexico, they probably are. So 80% of the people who cross the border, specifically from Mexico, because that's why he quotes, deported, expelled, or returned where? To Mexico. 80% of Mexicans crossing the southern border who, or they might have been crossing the northern border too. You never know, because a lot of people are coming that way. 80% of the Mexicans who cross the border who claim asylum are eventually rejected in a process that could take years. But when you read this article, if you don't read between the lines, if you will, you'll miss that and you'll misunderstand it, which is why it's written this way. Because most people are not that smart, and that's exactly what the media is going for. Taking advantage of people they know aren't going to pay close attention, who have a lacking in reading skills perhaps, or are not going to bother to research it. And Anarchy says they've been bouncing around to different lives. Just thought I'd put my eyeballs in to show you that I was here. Well, I appreciate it, Anarchy. And Puck says Luis Miranda's asylum claim was denied too. And look where he is. There you go. There you go. Anarchy says the federal government has become traitorous to the American people. It sure as hell feels that way, doesn't it? And Doc says, but the courts don't hold these people accountable, so how are they rejected? Well, they're supposed to be deported. They're supposed to be put on if they're from South America, they're supposed to be put on a bus. If they're from deep South, Latin America, or from overseas, they're supposed to be put on a charter flight and expelled and blocked from returning. That's what used to happen. Doesn't happen anymore. Urban says, oh, well, if they can't work legally, they can always shoplift. For ambitious migrants, they can start an organized looting ring, get some scooters, and it's all gravy from there. Yeah, and they steal the scooters too. Just ask anybody in New York. And Puck says NGOs are the problem, and the U.S. is funding their efforts. Isn't that scary, folks? Isn't that scary? Isn't that an amazing waste of tax dollars and of resources? Aren't you tired of it? And it's not just an America problem. Remember, this is happening all over the Western world. Are you in Canada? Are you tired of it? Are you in New Zealand? Are you tired of it? Are you in the UK? Are you in France, Italy, Australia, Spain? Are you tired of it? Germany, Greece? Pick your country, pick your poison. Aren't you sick and tired of it? Waiting to see when it's going to jump off. You never know, folks. You never know. And with that, and Department of Truth is here. He says, nice beard. Thanks. My wife asked me to grow it out. She wanted to see what it looks like, and she likes it now. She wants me to keep it. So with that, I'll go ahead and start wrapping things up. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and that is at Coffee Talk Live or at Prepper University on YouTube, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, and Fistful of Radio, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So again, thank you to everybody who was able to join us here today. Hope you got something out of the conversation. And with that, I will go ahead and wrap things up, and we will catch you tomorrow.